All right, next item on the discussion information items is class size policy.
This is a request of Mr. Walsh.
Yeah, well, okay, I could say what page are we on?
I have a copy of the current policy if you want.
Well, I'm suggesting that, and I thought we were going to consider doing in the policy committee last, is we implemented the policy to address small class size. That if the class size was below 20, the administration has to come to the board before the schedule is approved and have the board approve classes under 20. And that's really a budgetary issue, is to look at controlling cost. But we also saw the last couple of years, we had many classes that were over what the standard that you established for the types of classes. In particular, I think we had some gym classes that were up in the 50s last year. I don't know if we do this year. And I think we should revise the policy to address both ends of the spectrum so that the board knows before the schedule is completed if we have class sizes that are larger than what you've set as a guideline, because that goes, the low end goes to our financial issues. The high end goes to whether we're providing enough resources for our students to be successful in the classes, and to a certain extent, whether we're putting a extra burden on the teachers, which would keep them from dedicating enough time maybe in certain classes to each individual student.
Do you want us to put that on the policy committee agenda?
Well, now that might not happen for a while, because we just missed one. I'd like to see if we could get something in place before we approve the class schedule and the sizes for this year.
But what are the average class sizes for PE and that stuff around the other area schools?
The report that we've done an amazing job this year. I don't think we have more than 5 classes over the target in the entire school.
Because we ended up coming to you and asking
We
to
had to-
add some
we added
sections
this
to
to
bring
forces,
some of those
right.
down after the fact, yeah.
But then a lot of those were after the fact. I'm suggesting that we should know what classes are over the target before the schedule is set, to decide whether we think at that point
Well,
we
that-
need to look at.
That's kind of difficult to give you. The way, let me explain the process a little bit. So when the staffing numbers now come out, we don't go over the target. Where we ask for staff is from the board is when we try to get all the transfers in. So we don't know that till once the schedule's set and classes are set, and then all of a sudden if we get a huge influx of transfers, that's where we come to and say we're over the cap, we need this many teachers. The board accommodated that this year to get us below the cap. But I can't give that to you as early as February or March, because right now we just know everybody that's shown up to register. So if kids don't, transfers or kids that missed maybe registration this past weekend don't come until May or June or July, I won't get that till after staffing's
I'm
already
not
set.
asking, I'm asking that at the time the original schedule is set, if any of the classes, my suggestion is if any of the classes are above the target for that class, that the board's told at that point, and see if they need to make a decision whether we, at that point, should consider
Right,
the
so what
staff.
you're asking is what we did this year and the board accommodated that. We added that's what Pam's saying, we added the .2 here and the .4 there because we would be over the cap, and we did that when we're below the caps now. So we kind of did what you're asking already this year.
When we worked on the staffing, didn't we have number of students, number of sections?
Yes. I'm talking about at the time, I'll try one more time, because
Wait, let me ask you a question right now. When they presented us with the staffing for this school year,
yes.
all your classes were below cap.
No, I
they
don't,
weren't.
I don't think you understand, I understand what you're saying, but I don't think you understand what I'm saying.
I think I do.
Through May, June, and July, when we give you those personnel charts and we're
Right.
constantly asking for a .2 or .4,
Right.
that's how more kids transfer in. We don't do any staffing where we start over the target. So this February or March, right now in February, we have all the kids that have signed up for classes. When we assign staff to them, we don't assign anything over the cap. We make sure everything is under the cap. So we don't, in March, when I bring teachers, if we need to riff or we need to add, we never start over 32. The reason those PE classes you referenced was by the time we got to June or July and we had 10 PE teachers, with all the transfers, we really needed 10.2. But we don't start over the cap. We always keep everything under the cap. We probably build in, what would you say, Pam, 4 to 5? Probably, we try to do what, 2 to 3?
Yeah, some of them the classes don't break really. Some of them are tight, like a few of our AP classes, there were 32. There wasn't room for move-ins, basically, transfer-ins. They did start at 32.
So if you're asking if the cap's 32 and that right away we have 33, we should let the board know, hey, we have 33. Do we want
Yes.
2 teachers
Yes.
or 1 teacher?
Okay.
Okay.
I think the earlier we do that, the better. So the way you described it, I think there were a handful of classes that were over the guideline at the beginning last year.
Well, what happened is the few that were over, we added a teacher
Okay,
and resulted in being under the 20 mark and then having to get them approved.
okay.
So we had a couple that were over the target. I think one was AP Euro.
Well, how about this then? I still think we should address it in the policy. If the board's willing to agree, if you could commit and let us know either all the classes are under the cap or any that are over for this year, then I am okay with just leaving it on the agenda till the next time you have a policy council meeting and come up with a suggestion on that. Is that fair enough, Kevin?
Right now, so where Kevin's talking about before is when they're providing staffing levels to us, every class is below the cap. And when they need to they're going over the cap, they come back and ask for relief. So, you know what I mean?
But he also then said that they didn't do it for 100%
Yes.
of those classes. Right? You didn't do it for 100%. You did it for a couple of those classes.
No,
right?
we don't.
Well, the AP, did you?
We
split
added
the-
a teacher because we were over the cap.
What was the one that, I thought there were a couple classes that you just let run slightly higher?
Right at the cap.
Yeah.
At the cap, but we don't go over it.
There was no room for any
Okay.
student
Okay.
to move in. If they transferred and wanted that class, they were like closed right at the beginning.
Now, where we getting, the thing that I think might be driving one of these questions is, we'll put the staff on paper when you have 400 kids and you want 40 a class, it says you need 10 teachers. So it looks like we're all in the cap, where we're below the cap in every class or right at the cap.
Well, you did it on average by department heads.
So what
You didn't
happens?
do it by class.
Right, so what happens though is,
Now we're getting to what my question was.
well, I think what you have to understand is that's not really what your policy is, or what you're asking though. We have the balance so that the cap will break evenly, and no one will be over the cap. But if every kid wants to take choir 7th period and needs to take PE 6th period, that's gonna draw more kids to be over the cap in 6th period, but then we'll be significantly below the cap in 7th
And
period.
now we're on the same page. Let's go back to what I asked, because the way you explained it, I believe, is different than what I understood. We have a policy, black line. You have a class below 20, you have to come to us and tell us, and we have to approve it.
Correct.
We do not have a policy, black line, at the top end. And what we did last year is we looked at averages by department, and on average, they hit the target, but there were classes, individual classes, when we approved the schedule, that were over the target for that class. I would like to see the policy addressed that any individual class that is over the target for that class, that it be brought to the attention of the board at the time the schedule is approved, so we know and we decide if we're going to allow that, even as a temporary basis, while we're sorting out how many students there actually will be and whether we might have to bring back more teachers.
Right, so this year, what I'm saying to you is that I think almost universally, we have less than a handful, even after we balanced,
Right.
that are over the cap. In order to, It's an operational thing, but in order to meet what you're saying is, even though we technically have enough we should then have our guidance counselors either do two things: say no to more kids about other classes because it will cause a disbalance in the schedule,
Or you just
or
come and
we're
say,
going to
there's
increase,
6
or we
classes.
increase teachers.
There's 6, we don't have to do any of them. There's 6 classes, 2 math classes, 2 science classes, and 2 English classes. They are over the 24 or 30 or 32 or whatever target you have for that. I think it's okay if we leave them that way. We'll see how things sort out. We might have to come later on and have you. I had more than several parents, students, and teachers come to me at open house and thing and talk about the individual class that was a significant site. And I think it's just as important that we know, even if you think it's going to sort out at the end of the year, at the time we approve the schedule, just bring it to the attention that these classes are over that, and are we going to approve the schedule based on classes being over the target? Just like we do with classes under a certain level.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but it won't time up what you're saying. Our operation. In March, when we bring you the classes that are under 20.
I understand you don't like this idea, and maybe 5
Well, I
four members of the board don't,
think
but
that's not a fair comment. I'm trying to tell you how we manage the school, and you're trying to give me a policy. In March, when we bring the classes under 20, we don't have any classes over the target.
any individual class, not average for a department, an individual class.
The master schedule doesn't get set till June. Staffing's done in March to determine what teachers have to be reduced in force or what our projections are for recruitment.
Right.
Based on those numbers, then we see if we have to go out and recruit teachers or hire teachers. We try by the last day of school to get the master schedule to the teachers, but we don't know because of all those transfers. So with the conflicts and all that, that's why we try to leave a couple kids in each class vacant so that if kids come in, we can balance conflicts. But our master schedule, when would you say is absolutely final? June, July?
Well, I mean, it's final as far as the courses are set and their periods and who's teaching them. But, you know, in May, before the teachers leave, they know what they're teaching and what periods they're teaching it.
So not until
How many
last
kids they have in
not until the last transfer student
Yeah,
shows up to your door
do
is
you
your
know
is your
exactly
class
what
size
your final
finalized.
class?
Right, so like in
Which could be August 13th.
Right.
It could be September.
Yeah, they come in later.
So
but-
we added a section of biology this year in like August or September
Yeah.
because we were at max in all of our biology classes and we had 3 freshmen with no biology. So that's why we came to the board and asked for the extra .2. So I understand there's a period to report it, but it won't be at the same time as what you're saying right now. In March, I know, and Pam will say, hey, we had 17 kids sign up for photo. We'll bring to the board, hey, only 17 kids signed up, this is below 20. We won't know with all the transfers until August or June or July. Hey, now it's up to 34, should we add a second photo? That's when we come to you and add the staffing.
I understand that, and that's never going to change. But I'm going to say that your explanation, I'm asking for a simple thing that's not complicated. When we approve under 20, kids get added after sometimes, and kids get reduced. It could still change. We know that.
Okay.
But we have an absolute rule. If it's under 20, we have to approve it. And maybe that happened this year, although I think it's a little different than what you said. And it's going to change after March. But all I'm saying is at the time we approve it, and if it doesn't happen, it's simple. It should be no objection to report it because the report is we don't have any classes over that. That's
Right.
a simple statement or a note you could put in there.
It's
But
not an objection to report, the way you were saying it was like you wanted it at the same time. When we bring you classes under 20, we don't have any over the target, that's our goal.
okay, I know that's our goal.
I think Tim's just suggesting it be in the policy, and
Yeah.
at that point in time, you wouldn't have anything to report.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Any other discussion? Let's move to superintendent.
Do we need to close this discussion? Tim asked that, Tim, are you okay waiting to the policy meeting, the policy group
Yeah.
meets, and then they would bring back a suggestion to amend?
Yeah,
Okay,
I am.
all right.
And it's likely I'll remember to ask that question when we bring the schedule. So whether it's a
I
policy or
don't
not.
think nobody's hiding
Okay.
anything on anything.
Okay.
Nobody, I'm not
You know what I
suggesting
mean?
anybody's.
And I know that parents will sometimes complain about, you know, Johnny's got in a class that's too big and that stuff like that. This staff would not, Pam and her staff and Kevin would not allow classes to be humongously big, even at 32, if if the kids weren't learning. Would that, is that a good statement? Am I right?
Don't make her put in that position, because I'd like to, if we were gonna have it, I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, I'm saying, I think to meet our goals, this is something we should look at. People can agree, people can disagree. But I tell you what, that might have happened this year. We had classes last year that were a lot bigger than some of these numbers.
Absolutely.
And some of the gym classes had 50 kids. So I'm not looking, we set policy to be guided for a period of time, not it worked this year, it didn't work last year, don't change the policy. So the years I've been on the board, I considered it's been a problem. And I'm saying, don't put the pressure on the administration to decide whether they have to bring it up. I think it's best to have a policy that they should bring it to the board and we should know about it. Whether we do something about it or not is a completely different issue. It's not pointing fingers at anybody. It's not saying they did anything wrong or they planning to do something wrong. I mean, if we did it like that, we'd have to get them in confidence and say, were you happy with the class sizes, not last school year, but the one before? And we don't want to do that to our staff, so.